Hey everyone, Lex over here, and I'm with my student Allie. And Allie, I want to thank you for coming in today
course.
and sharing your story with everyone, because a lot of people out there that want to learn how to flip houses like hearing stories like this. So for those out there that are watching this, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm 26. When I had met Lex, I was, what do you say, 23? About
Okay.
23. I grew up in New York. I was living in Manhattan, doing rental properties after I went to school at Indiana University. And my dad was living in Miami, and he went to one of Lex's meetup meetings and said, "Hey, Allie, you have to meet this guy. You know, he's flipping these houses, and he's doing all of this business, and you need to come down here and see what it's all about." So I went to a boot camp, and quickly after that I had moved to Miami and started doing this.
Okay. So, all right, so you were a realtor in New York doing rentals. You came down, you did the boot camp with me. How long did it take from the boot camp till you did your first deal?
From the boot camp till I did my first deal, I would say about a year, because I got a little distracted.
Okay.
I had opened up my own business, doing something completely different.
Oh, that's right. I remember this now. You went to, you keep saying, it wasn't a balloon business.
It wasn't a balloon business. It was a photo booth business
Okay.
at weddings.
So
I got a little bit distracted. I thought I could make more money doing that than
Okay.
real estate. I was very wrong. It was a wash. I came back to Lex, I would say a year later, and said, "Okay, I'm ready to do
So
this."
pay attention, guys, because a lot of times people will do this. They'll come to a boot camp and they'll go away for 6 months or a year, and then they'll come back, and then the second time they'll figure it out. All right, so you come back now, second time, you do the boot camp, and then you made a decision to take this job in the evenings. What was that job again?
So I was a manager type of person at a halfway house.
Okay.
So that allowed me to work evenings so I could support myself so I could work, during the day to learn how to wholesale.
Okay.
So.
And, for me, it was an interesting observation because Allie, she came into my office and she wanted to learn how to wholesale, but she looked exhausted. She was working this night job. She'd come in, and finally, after observing this for around maybe 2 months or so, I just said, how much are you making on this job? And you were making, what, $11 an hour?
11 an hour.
And so I said, Allie, why don't you just quit that and just focus on making offers on properties? And then she was like, well, how am I going to pay my bills if I do that? And that was when I came up with, and I haven't done this with anyone else, and don't ask me to do it again, but in the case of Allie, I just said, you know what, I would wager to bet that if I gave you $11 an hour for those other 20 hours and you could just come into my office and make offers, that's $220 a week. I'm pretty sure that after like 60 or 90 days, some magic would happen, and it did. Right, so tell everyone about your first deal, your first wholesale.
Well, and it didn't happen right away. It didn't happen in 60 to 90 days. It was a process. It was a learning.
How long did it take
took
you?
about 6-7 months.
Now, what would you say to somebody watching this who wants to get started wholesaling? What would you say occurred during those 6 or 7 months? The learning process for you to get to the point where you are able.
The learning process. It was strenuous. I was pretty much analyzing these numbers of the homes up to like, I would say 50 a day, 50 homes, and that's all I did all day was go through the numbers and go through the comps and try and really understand what's a deal and what's not a deal. And it was very difficult.
Do you think you were maybe overanalyzing it as opposed to just
I'm
making
a very analytical person, so I take things next step in analyzing, especially when it comes to numbers. So yes, I was overanalyzing.
Okay.
And I don't learn like so quickly. So I would say that it was a hard process. And I think that anyone who is successful at wholesaling that I've spoken to goes through those periods of time where you really just want to quit.
Absolutely.
Every
And
day
I think
you want to quit and you get frustrated, and there's moments of doubt because it's 6-7 months and you're working 8 hours a day, and then I was working on the weekends 8 hours a day, sometimes more, sometimes 9 or 10, and I wasn't making any money.
Right, and that's very common, guys. You know, it's very, very common to see, you know, a 4 to 6 month learning curve until the pieces start to fall into place. Unfortunately, a lot of people quit during those 4 to 6 months. All right, so now let's fast forward. Tell me about like your first time, your first wholesale.
Okay, so my first wholesale deal was this little house in Deerfield Beach. It was, I had bought it for, I want to say 93. Was that right, or 97?
I think you bought it for 96 and sold it for 101.
96 to, and then I sold it for 101.
I got this kind of memory, and for whatever reason, I can remember every single property. I can remember. I can even give you the address of that property right now. But so you bought that for 96 and sold it for 101.
101 first harvest.
Okay, so that was 5,000, and then your next deal was the one in Miami Gardens.
That was 5,000, and then my next deal right after that was Miami Gardens, and I happened to find a good deal.
And now, just backtracking a second, the first deal in Deerfield Beach, where did you find that? Was that on?
I want to say I found it on the MLS.
So it wasn't on like Hubzu or anything?
It wasn't on Hubzu or anything. I found it on the MLS, and I had put in an offer with the agent.
So you just called the agent and made an offer, okay. And then on the second deal that you found in Miami Gardens, the one you bought for 150 and sold for 159, where did you find that house?
Again, I found it on the MLS. And I gave an offer to the agent, and I remember the agent calling me and saying, if you waive all inspection and send me a $5,000 check right now, then a $5,000 wire now to the title company, then we'll take your offer. And I looked at it quickly, and I took the gamble because I felt that it was a good deal, and we sold it right away within the first hour.
All right, good. Wow, so we put it out in the email blast and sold it. All right, and then from there, I think you went into your next deal was in Port St. Lucie, I believe, right?
Yes, my next deal was in Port St. Lucie. My next few deals, I think, were in Port St. Lucie.
And how were you finding those?
Port St. Lucie ranged from agents that I spoke to, and they would give me a house, and because I spoke to them and I bought them a house, I bought the house from them, and I give them both sides of the commission.
Okay, so that's a key point, right? Giving them both sides of the commission.
Because that's what they're working for. So I get it from them, and then I got a few from HUD, Home Store.
You got actually a really big deal from HUD. That was the house that
I got a huge deal from HUD.
That was the house you made like 29,000.
29,000, and one flip. It took me, I'd say, an hour of paperwork.
Wow! So you just went on HUDHomestore.com. You found a house. You bid on it. You got it for I think 80,000 and sold it for 109.
80,000, and I sold it for 109.
And you got a commission.
Plus,
on it.
I got commission. Plus,
So
I
that's
got
pretty-
3,000 in commission.
So you made almost $33,000 on that deal.
33,000.
Wow!
Yeah.
And that was a wholesale. All right, and then from there you got some capital together. I know you had a few others. You sold that house in New York to me that I ended up rehabbing. And I made a nice profit on, so thank you for that.
Of course.
And then you sold also another house that was also in Parish to my student Adam.
It's a different parish, but...
Okay, and he still owns that as a rental. He refinanced, and he's got like around 30,000 equity in that house. And then you decided to move into fix and flip. So tell me a little bit about your first fix and flip.
My first fix and flip, I had found it on HUD Home Store, again.
That was the first house you bought on Bridgeport.
It was the first house I bought on Bridgeport.
So again, a HUD property as well. It was just listed on HUDHomestore.com. All right.
And it didn't need much work. It didn't need the kitchen or the bathrooms to be redone. So it was a lot of floor and paint and the fun stuff, really.
Okay.
And I think I bought it for, somehow you remember the numbers better than I do.
You bought it for 98. You sold it for 149.
And I put only 11 or 12
12
into it.
Okay. So that was about, let's see, 15, it was about 30,000 or so? Okay, very nice. And that was your first fix and flip?
And it went pretty smoothly. It was a pretty easy fix and flip for my first one.
And they don't all go so smoothly, right?
No, they didn't all go so smoothly at all.
And then after that, you did, like a total of 4 fix and flips, including that one?
After that one, I did 4. I did 1, and then I did 2 at once, and then I did 4 at once. So that's 7.
So a total of 7.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, so you came down from New York, a couple of years ago. Now you got your real estate license. You've done wholesales. You've done fix and flips. So You were making $11 an hour, and you stopped doing that to go into wholesaling houses. And I think we actually have Allie in one of our presentations, where we show in a period of like 8 weeks, you had closings for $52,000 worth of profit, going from just making $11 an hour. So pretty substantial. And how old are you now?
I'm 26.
26. So
Getting old.
only 26 years old. So. So basically, what advice would you say for somebody who's watching this right now, who's thinking about getting into wholesaling, and hey, they could be your age or they could be your parents' age, but what advice would you give to them if they're watching this right now? What would you say? What would you recommend to them?
My number one recommendation for advice would be invest in your education, because you can try and do it by yourself and you can read the books, and of course those are amazing, but you make a mistake in this business and your mistake costs you money, and you can lose a lot of money from those mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't invest in your education, what ends up happening is you lose way more money in mistakes, and the education, it pays off. So I would say number one is to get a coach or get a mentor, go to some boot camps, anything you can to educate yourself on what not to do to lose your money. So.
All right, very nice. Okay, well, Allie, I want to thank you for taking the time to come in and share your story with everyone. And I know you had a busy day today, so thank you for that. And guys, if you're watching this right now and you've never flipped a house, but you want to, then watching a story like this with Allie, who's only 26 years old and has done, 7, 8 deals, over $100,000, no, more than that.
Or it's more like over 2.
Over $200,000 worth of profit, right, including the fix and flips. That should give you the motivation to realize that you could be doing this too, right? So if you want to flip houses, there's people out there like Allie that are doing it, and me, and if you want to get started, then just do it. Just go for it.